Types of elections in India. One is direct elections and the other is indirect elections. In direct elections, the voter elects his representatives directly without any intermediaries, whereas in indirect elections, the voter elects his representative indirectly with an intermediary body. So direct elections is the first elections or the first phase of elections where the voter elects his representatives, and next those representatives elect their representatives, that is the Electoral College chooses their representative. That becomes the second phase of elections. We call it as the indirect elections. Now coming to the direct elections, let us see what its features are. Direct elections is more democratic, which means to say people have more wider choice of choosing their leaders. There are many political parties existing in direct election because a voter has an option: political party A, political party B, C, D, etc. And the voter has to choose amongst these and he has to cast his vote. It is more responsive. Once the voter chooses his leader, chooses his representative, the representative is responsible to the voter. The responsibility of the representative lies as long as he is in power. That means when the representatives are in power, if they have done or fulfilled the wishes and aspirations of the people, then he can be sure of winning the next elections. Otherwise, the voter will not choose that particular political party for the next elections. Okay? Third, creates political awareness. A voter, before he casts his vote, he wants to know whom he is going to cast his vote for. So who are the contestants? What are his educational qualifications? What is his responsibility? What are his capabilities? And he collects information regarding the representative from the print media, from the mass media, and he does his own calculations and he goes and casts his vote. So he is aware of what is happening in the governmental organizations. So this curiosity of understanding the representative, understanding the candidates before elections is more democratic, and this is one of the reasons why the representatives also behave in a responsible manner. Coming to the next one, selection of eligible candidates. The voter tests the capabilities of a candidate. What are his capabilities? What are his capacities? After that only he will cast his vote. Why? Because the candidate has given his details while submitting his nomination papers, and the normal voter gets to know information about how he has fared in his earlier term, and then he casts his vote. And the next one is public relationship. A voter and the candidate or the representative has a good relationship. That is, the representative maintains a good relationship with the voter because the next elections he has to win. Only if there is a good rapport between the two, it is possible for him to win the next elections. Now coming to the merits of direct elections. The first one is provides a personal touch. The voter has a personal choice over here because he also knows what the representative's capacities and capabilities are. Hence, he chooses his representatives in a much better manner. So, the personal touch between the voter and the representative is also very, very important, and it is advantageous, especially in a direct election. Stimulates interest. It stimulates interest in the voter. A voter has to cast his vote. Before casting his vote, he would like to know about what the candidate capacities are. So he finds out through the media, through the print media, etc., by reading newspapers, by reading the manifesto of the political party, etc. He collects information regarding the representative, regarding the candidate, and then only he goes and casts his vote. So his interest gets stimulated, especially when it is for direct elections. If it is indirect elections, the voter is no more interested. Why? Because the voter is interested when it is the Lok Sabha elections, whereas the voter is not interested in the elections of the president. It is here that in the lower house of the legislature, of the state legislature, the voter is interested, whereas in the Electoral College has to elect the President of India, there it is the voter is not interested at all. Next we come to the more democratic advantage. More advantageous or more democratic. In indirect elections, it is not possible for the candidate to have direct contact with the representative. Hence, there is less contact among the representative and the voter. Whereas in direct elections, it is more democratic, especially at times, even in indirect elections, to make it more democratic, they follow direct elections. Okay. Now we come to the next topic, that is demerits of direct elections. Incompetent electorate. Usually direct elections, the voter chooses his representative. If the voter himself is an electorate, it shows that he is an incompetent electorate. So when we have an incompetent electorate, we will also choose an incompetent rulers, leaders, representatives. So incompetent electorate in direct elections is a drawback to the nation. Violence and corruption. During elections, every political party comes to the forefront, conducts rallies, gives speeches. They talk ill about other parties, they praise their own political party, and create differences in the minds of the people of different groups. When that happens, when there is differences of opinion, there is fights takes place, violence erupts. Corrupt activities takes place, and there is lot of disturbances in direct elections because people are incompetent as it is, and people fight for little reasons amongst themselves in different groups. The last one is the misuse of propaganda. Propaganda is misused, especially in direct elections. Why? Everybody gives wrong propaganda. They give advertisements or convince people to vote for the wrong candidate. And the person who has to cast his vote also does not understand the full system, and he votes for the wrong candidate because media or money power or muscle power plays a big role over here. Hence, it becomes that when they are given wrong propaganda, it also shows that there is a voter always elects a wrong candidate. The example for direct elections is the Lok Sabha elections or the House of People elections conducted in India in the form of general elections. Another example is the USA House of Representatives. In the United Kingdom, it is the House of Commons. Now coming to the next topic, that is indirect elections. Indirect elections are nothing but the elections which will be called as double elections. That means what the voters have elected their representatives, these representatives in turn elect their representative. That is, the President of India is elected indirectly. The President, Ramnath Kovind, was elected indirectly through an electoral college. The voters elect their representatives. These representatives from the lower house as well as the upper house form the Electoral College. This Electoral College elects the representative, and that is the President of India. In the same way, the members to the Rajya Sabha are elected indirectly. Members to the State Legislative Council are also elected indirectly. Now, in indirect elections, let us learn its features. The selection of the best candidate. When in direct elections, the voters choose their representatives based on money power, muscle power, or media power. Whereas in indirect elections, it is not possible because the Electoral College consists of intelligent or those people who are politically aware. Hence, they will always choose the best candidate as their president, as their representative. Hence, selection of best candidate takes place under indirect elections. They will also elect judiciously. They will use their thinking power. There is no point of any way of corruption. Hence, elections are done judiciously. The second point is prevents unhealthy campaign. There is no propaganda for any sort of dirty politics. All such dirty politics is avoided. No instigation of any sort of people towards electing or choosing the wrong candidate, because all these people are educated as well as they will judiciously choose their leaders. Hence, they will avoid completely unhealthy campaign. Next is peaceful voting. The Electoral College elects their representative. The members of the Electoral College are all educated and they are not into any sort of fights or creating disturbances. They want to conduct peaceful elections because there is a small group of people, a small section of electorate is only there. Hence, these people concentrate more on their good values, on the correct rules and regulations are followed, the norms are followed. Hence, elections are conducted in a peaceful way and there is no scope for any sort of illegal activity and no fights takes place. Fourth point is little scope for emotions. Emotions do not play a role here. The sensitive areas are not to be used for any sort of political gains. The sensitization or the emotions of a representative does not have any chance because they are all educated and good people who have chosen their leaders. Suitable for developing nations. Now, coming to the fifth point, suitable for developing nations. It is good for developing nations because a small group of people are politically inclined, who are educated, who are responsible. They are there in the Electoral College. Hence, it is very good for the developing nations. Now coming to the merits of indirect elections. First one, prevents useless candidates. The Electoral College is considered as those members who are educated as well as responsible. Now, the voters have elected efficient people. These efficient people who are in the Electoral College again chooses an efficient representative. Hence, we realize that the dangers of direct election does not exist here. There is no question of any drawbacks even if there is universal adult franchise. Next, evils of political parties are reduced. Every political party, while going for campaign just before elections, they talk ill of the other political parties. They do not have much good about themselves, but they talk ill about leads to the people selecting wrong leaders in direct elections. Whereas in indirect elections, this sort of wrong propaganda or choosing the wrong candidate does not happen. Hence, the evils of political parties are reduced. Next we come to suitable for backward countries. Countries which are backward have more of illiterate people, ignorant people who are not in a very good position. In such nations also, it is very good to have indirect elections because the voters are not touched directly. The higher level people are chosen by the Electoral College. Next, effective governance. The government formed by the representatives are that they are experienced, intelligent. The Electoral College consists of experienced, intelligent people, and all of them choose their leaders who are very good. For example, if we have for example, Mr. P.V. Narasimha Rao, who was the Prime Minister during an economic crisis in the year 1991. The President had nominated Dr. Manmohan Singh as the member of the Rajya Sabha. Hence, P.V. Narasimha Rao appointed Dr. Manmohan Singh as the Finance Minister, and because he was a very good economist, and he was the one person who solved the economic crisis for India in the year 1991. Next, we come to the demerits. Absence of a real democracy. The idea of a democracy is government of the people, by the people, and for the people, where public opinion plays a very important role. But this sort of democracy talks of where all the people are not involved in the elections of the President of India. Only a section of the electorate is being used. Hence, it becomes not proper democracy. Next is people tend to lose interest. People tend to lose interest in the elections of the President of India, whereas in the Lok Sabha elections, the people are interested, the voter is interested. Next, even in the when the upper house members have to be elected, the people are not at all interested. They lose interest in such elections. Absence of political education. A voter does not get political education during the indirect elections, whereas in direct elections he gets political awareness. In indirect elections, this sort of political awareness is not there because it is dealing only with a small section of the electorate, and that small section of the electorate only chooses the President of India. Earlier days, there used to be only men participating in the elections. We used to call it as men suffrage. The women were asked to be within the four walls of the house. Later on, after some period, in different countries, people started to go out and cast their vote. They started different movements, and in other countries, even the women were allowed to cast their vote after a long period of time. But in India, when the Indian Constitution was made itself, it was finalized that we shall have universal adult franchise. Now, what is universal adult franchise? Universal, all men and women, adult, all above 18 years of age, franchise is right to vote. All men and women above the age of 18 years who have the right to vote. That is, all those people who are above 18 years of age will cast their vote. So, India in the Constitution itself, it had been specified because we had more supporters. Nehru was one of the most important person who supported universal adult franchise. Rousseau and J.S. Mill also supported universal adult franchise. Now coming to an activity. We will have an activity session. That is, I will give you a few set of questions. These questions have to be answered by you, and a picture of the question and answers have to be taken and uploaded into the link below. This chapter will ask you questions for 17 marks. In that, 10 marks will be one question, 5 marks 1 question and 1 mark 2 questions. So you have 17 marks for this one chapter. Now, coming to the questions, what you have to answer is, what is the root word of elections? What is the root word of elections? Second, what is elections? Third is, what is the general elections? Fourth, what is by-elections? Fifth, what is midterm elections? Sixth is, what is direct elections? Seventh, give an example of direct elections. Eighth, what is indirect elections? Ninth, give an example for indirect election. And the 10th question is, what is universal adult franchise? Thank you. Have a nice day.